drilling operation there of Senegal and the Gambia, and industry expert Wood Mackenzie, I noticed, has ranked their Sango-1 well, which is located offshore in the Gambia in West Africa, as one of the key wells to watch around the globe in 2018. And this woman up here is going to talk us through their slew of successful wells. I know the feeling well. This is FAR's Managing Director. Her name is Cath Norman. Now, Cath is a geophysicist, and like our last 3%, she too has 30 years of experience in this industry. In fact, in the minerals, oil and gas exploration industry. She's held executive positions both in Australia and in the UK. She's carried out operating assignments in Europe, Africa, the Middle East and Australia, and she's here today to tell us, well, we were a little bit late, but there's more to come, I'm sure. So please make welcome Cath Norman from FAR.
Thanks very much, Chrissy. I certainly hope that we've got a lot left in the tank in terms of share price accretion over the next few months. We are a company that's about to drill, as Chrissy said, one of the most watched wells around the world offshore the Gambia. It's an 800 million barrel prospect, and we have 40% of that, and we're fully carried through that well. We're operating, and we're carried by Petronas, which is the state-owned company of Malaysia, who farmed in earlier this year. It gives me great pleasure to talk a little bit about FAR's history, how we've got to where we are, and how a little Australian company is largely responsible for opening up one of the global hotspots for oil exploration today. So our market cap as we stand is about 600 million Australian dollars, and FAR has a strategic focus on the MSGBC basin, which is the Mauritania, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Conakry basin, which is quite a mouthful, so we prefer to call it the MSGBC. We made basin opening discoveries in 2014 offshore Senegal, with two wells we drilled called FAN-1 and SNE-1. Subsequent to 2014, we've now drilled 11 successful deep water oil wells offshore Senegal, 4 of which are independent discoveries, and 7 of those wells were appraisal wells on the giant SNE field, which we will be submitting the development plan to the government for by the end of this month. And we've been assured by the government that by the end of the year we'll have approval of the development plan, and we'll be heading to FID in late 2019. It's a hugely exciting project. We're 15% of this oil field. It's a 640 million barrel field on a 2C basis, and I'll show you a little bit more of our plans for Senegal in the future. When we first went into Senegal, FAR had a 90% working interest, and in 2012 we farmed down to ConocoPhillips and Cairn Energy of the UK, and we had a $200 million carry on the drilling of those first 2 wells, FAN-1 and SNE-1. And when we completed that farm out, we thought, well gosh, if we're drilling these 2 wells, what other acreage sits around us that we might like to get into? And we immediately started to talk to the operators of surrounding acreage, one of which was Aaron Energy, who are the operators of the Gambian blocks that we are now drilling with the giant Samo well, which will be spudding in about 5 weeks' time. We've got a pretty strong balance sheet. Part of the farm out from Petronas was to give us $19 million in cash. It arrived in our bank account last Friday, so I'm very pleased to say we've got just under $50 million in cash at the moment. Last year we also signed an AMI agreement with CNOOC, and we are actively looking for more exploration acreage offshore Senegal and the Gambia with CNOOC as our partner. I talked a little bit about the making of an exploration hotspot around the world. So the image on the left is an image of what the exploration acreage or licensing situation looked like back in 2012. And there was, as you can see, not a lot of activity offshore Senegal, and certainly not off the Gambia. Now, since we've made our discoveries, we've seen BP Cosmos subsequently discover about 60 TCF of gas to the north of our giant SNE field in Senegal. We've seen the entrance of not only BP, but also Total, Petronas, CNOOC, Woodside, Exxon and Shell in the last 2 years. So we're surrounded by, I would quite confidently say, 6 of the largest oil companies in the world today. In fact, Stellar Advisors, energy advisors of the UK, said that without the SNE field, West African oil exploration would certainly be dead. a lot of unsuccessful wells drilled in the last few years on the margin. You can see here that FAR has increased its exploration acreage in the area with these two blocks here, which are offshore the Gambia, A2 and A5. So we now are a company of two halves, actually. We have this wonderful project in Senegal, and now we have farmed into this fantastic project in the Gambia. So as I said, we're expecting first oil, our development to progress as of FID at the end of next year, and first oil in Senegal in 2022, and first gas being produced in 2024. In the SNE field alone, we have 90 million barrels of 2C contingent resources being taken to development, net to FAR, and with the other discoveries we've made in and around, which are all within tieback range of the SNE hub development, we've got another net 30 million barrels net to FAR. In the SNE field, we've got 4 billion barrels of oil in place, and that is an amazing amount of oil to be generated on this margin and trapped in the SNE complex. There's no doubt that with such a prolific source rock generating the oil trapped in SNE, that there will be other accumulations of oil in the neighbourhood. And we are going to be embarking on the first exploration well to be drilled offshore the Gambia for 40 years. We'll be spudding in around the 20th of October. That date will be nailed down in the next few weeks when we go through the rig acceptance process. It's a 35-day well, and we'll be expecting results from that well after logging, early to mid-December. So a really nice Christmas present for all of our shareholders and the people of Gambia. As I said, the prospect we're drilling is an 825 million barrel prospect on a best estimate basis. It's been audited by risk. And if we're successful in finding 825 million barrels, there'll be 330 million barrels net to FAR. Now, when you consider that our market cap is largely underpinned by our roughly 100 million barrels that we have in Senegal, you can see that there's huge potential upside if the Samo well is successful. So I would argue that we are undervalued today. In Gambia, we also have an inventory of other prospects totaling about 680 million barrels that are yet to be drilled, and I'll show you a little of those as we go through the presentation. So FAR's been in Senegal since 2006. As I said, we farmed out for the first two deep water wells to be drilled offshore Senegal for 40 years, so a lot of similarities between Senegal and the Gambia. Our joint venture has now invested just under $1 billion. We're the largest commercial investor in Senegal, and we have 11 from 11 successful oil wells drilled to date, 100% drilling success rate offshore Senegal. We don't have any intention of blemishing that drilling success rate with our well in Samo, by the way. We're heading for our phase development to the SNE field that you can see here. And this is the border of Senegal and the Gambia, and as you can see, we have an extension of this lovely shelf edge play trend down into the Gambia, and we've mapped 3 potential drilling prospects here, drillable prospects, and numerous leads down to the south in A5. Where we're going to be drilling is right here. That's the Samo well location. This is the Samo prospect. We have another prospect called Solo, which is obviously the extension of the SNE field into the Gambia, but for obvious reasons, our joint venture in Senegal is saying the SNE field terminates here, and the joint venture in Gambia is saying the Solo prospect terminates here. But I'll show you a cross-section through the two, and you can clearly see the reservoirs extending south into the Gambia. We'll be embarking on a phased development of the SNE field. It'll be an FPSO with subsea tiebacks. The break-even oil price for that development has been calculated to be $35 a barrel. So at $70 a barrel today, this will be around a $12.50 NPV per barrel on a full field basis. We're expecting to, in phase 1, achieve a plateau production rate of 100,000 barrels a day, going up to about 140,000 barrels when we are on our full production. So where are we at with Senegal? I'm not going to focus too much on Senegal because I'd like to get on and talk to you about the Gambia. But we are submitting the development plan for approval, or the exploitation plan for approval to the government at the end of this month. And as I said, expecting to get to FID in late next year. So far in the Gambia, we farmed into these two blocks, A2 and A5, in February 2017, and we paid $166,000 per percentage point to farm in. Why is this interesting? It's interesting because 11 months later we farmed out to Petronas, and Petronas paid us $655,000 to farm in, about almost 4 times what we'd paid 11 months earlier. So that shows you the amount of interest that's been generated in this particular region to be able to increase the value of that farming in such a short period of time. As a result, we have a 40% working interest and will be free carried through the first well to be drilled. We retain the operatorship, so we're operating as well on behalf of the joint venture. Because of the fact that we've drilled the reservoirs in the Samo prospect 9 times to the north in Senegal, we're giving this prospect a 50% chance of geological success. So let's show you a little bit of the geology. This is a lovely, roughly north-south cross-section, oblique cross-section through the area. And this is our shelf edge here. You can see the giant SNE field here. And we also drilled SNE North and made an oil discovery. We've applied for a licence to evaluate that discovery from the government, which we're expecting to proceed with next year. And you can see we have another little bump to the south, which is the Solo field. The the area I said was clearly an extension to SNE down the trend. And the next bump is Samo as we head further south. So that's roughly heading in this direction along the margin. Not only do we have Samo that we'll be drilling, but we've also assessed Solu and a new prospect called Bambo, which are upside exploration interests in Block A2. Let's take a little bit closer look at the Samo prospect. You can see SNE here, anomaly terminating here. There's a slight saddle, but we see the reservoirs extending into Solu and then further down into the giant Samo prospect. Here's a cartoon of a cross-section through the area. You can see the SNE field here. We know our oil-water contact. We've got continuous 3D seismic that's been reprocessed to knit all of this area together. We can see clearly all of these reservoirs continuing down into Samo. What's interesting is that as you head south, you get closer to the source of the sediments for the reservoirs, and they thicken. So the reservoirs we're seeing in SNE, we're expecting to be much thicker when we drill the giant Samo prospect. Solu and Bambo are follow-up prospects that we are looking to perhaps drill at the end of 2019, early 2020 with our partner Petronas, and we can drill Crestal on our Solu prospect and also intersect the Bambo prospect. Bambo carries a much lower chance of success, about 18%, purely because we've never intersected those reservoirs and hydrocarbons in any of our drilling that we've done to the north. It's a much shallower target, but nonetheless very exciting. Drill readiness, as I said, we'll be spudding in October with results by year end. We've begun to reactivate the rig. I expect in about 3 weeks' time we will be going through the rig acceptance procedures and announcing the final spud date, and it's a great time to be drilling. We're seeing the lowest rig rates we've seen for a number of years. In fact, we had a 5-well program last year in Senegal. We're drilling at $190,000 a day with a wonderful drill ship that had 1% non-productive rig time at the end of that mission, and we've got exactly the same rig for exactly the same rate for a 1-well program today. So it's a great time to be drilling wells out here. We put a lot of effort into our community projects. We've been in Senegal for a long time, as I said, 12 years. We've been doing some wonderful community projects outside the joint venture, and I'd be very happy to talk some more about that if you come to our booth. We've been, in particular, renovating a lot of primary schools, and we've got evidence now that retention of young girls, just through building toilet blocks for primary schools, retention of young girls in schools has been increased, and that's just wonderful to see. We've got a huge end of the year coming up. As I said, the 2 main catalysts for us are clearly submitting the development plan and getting approval from the government for the big SNE development that we're expecting to get approval for by the end of the year. and with it we'll be releasing the final joint venture view of the field and all the economics. And in the Gambia, of course, we'll be spudding our well around October 20th, so only in 5 weeks. And if that comes in, that's going to be extremely significant for our shareholders. And of course, the people of the Gambian population is about 2 million people, so this has got the ability to really be hugely influential to the life and the prosperity of the people in the Gambia. So thank you very much. We're based in Melbourne. You're more than welcome to come and visit us on our stand or any time if you're in Melbourne. Thank you.
Thanks,